Shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rekha Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, blessing, and safety to all the Akim out there pushing this truth and sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. This is the brother Hadabia from the GMS Toronto camp, coming back at you with another one. And the unbelief of the people. So, Jake, Jake is stubborn, you know, they, they've been stubborn. They've been stubborn from the get-go, you know. They were let out of Egypt and still wanted to go back, They seen miraculous miracles and, still wanted to go back, Even now, the apostles, elders, and bishops, and brothers on down, especially the ones who, been laboring in this thing for a long time, and even the new, starting off with them, have been, talking about, have been prophesying about, what is to come, especially that MOTB, that RFID chip, and here it is, that technology's out here. You can Google it. You can see it for yourself. It's not a myth. It's fact that that exists. It's just not something that's made mandatory. But our people are stubborn. They seen Yahushai perform miraculous miracles. Here in John, if you read from is it this one? Yeah, when he raises Lazarus from the dead, people didn't want to believe. Even though he was, pretty sure it says he was dead for 3 or 4 days, the people still didn't want to believe. They still wanted to be ignorant. They still wanted to call Yahushua a demon. And, that's just what I'm going to go into. It's just, the unbelief of our people. So this is John 12:37 in the NLT. But despite all the miraculous signs Yahushua had done, most of the people still did not believe in him. That's exactly how our people are today. If anything, they're more blinded today, because, well, let's just say, there's many distractions. There's many distractions that are, going on. The space is a whole lot more wicked than it was back then. And our people don't want to seek. They don't want to seek the Lord. They don't want to seek Yahushua. They don't want to change. They don't want to listen to the prophets. When they see us on the corners, they don't want to listen. They don't, they don't even. They more times they don't even inquire. They just look, they just stare and keep it moving, or they'll make up their face. And this this is how our people are today. If they were paying attention to what our apostles have been prophesying about for decades, because these men have been in it for years, and to see a lot of these things come to fruition, it's happening. We're living in it. And yet they still don't want to believe. They want to see, they want to see physical miracles. But even then, they still wouldn't believe, because here it is, like I'm going to read you, how Shai was, like it just said. But despite all the miraculous signs Yahushua had done, most of the people still did not believe in him. This is exactly what Isaiah the prophet had predicted. Lord, Yahweh Shemel Shai, who has believed our message, to whom has the Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai revealed his powerful arm. So our people, they're just stiff-necked, they're stubborn, they don't want to listen. So let me get that account. Let me go to Isaiah. This is Isaiah 30 and 8 in the NLT, and you see a warning in rebellious Judah. Our people are rebellious, they're wicked, they're stubborn, they don't want to hear. Now go and write these words, write them in a book. They will stand until the end of time as a witness that these people are stubborn rebels who refuse to pay attention to the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua's instructions. They don't want to hear. We tell them to repent. We tell them don't follow the way of the heathen. We tell them the correct name. The correct name of the Father and the Son. But they're rebellious. They don't want to listen. They don't want to pay attention. We tell them that Babylon the Great, aka America, is going to fall, and it's going to fall and never rise again. That it's going to be annihilated through intercontinental ballistic missiles and fire from Yahushua and fire from those laser beams. But they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen. Despite so much talk about nuclear war and nuclear capability and in World War III and Iran, there's never been a time that there's been so much talk about nukes and World War III, and the end. But they refuse. They refuse to look at the signs. They just want to be in their bubble and just continue to live according to this flesh, and just be wicked and stubborn. There are people who are warned not to go take that juice. The hokey pokey, and look what's look at the stuff that's come out about all that stuff. It's no secret. So the warning's been going out, but our people do not want to pay attention. They don't want to pay attention to these instructions. These instructions are life-saving instructions, but they don't want to hear. Verse 10, they tell the seers, stop seeing the visions. They tell the prophets, don't tell us what is right. Tell us nice things, tell us lies. And that's why our people are up in them churches. They rather go in those churches every Sunday and listen to the nice, smooth talk. And those of us who've grown up in that in that environment, under that wicked vibration, we know what it's like. It's to go to church every Sunday, and I never would hear them talk about no type of catastrophic events or some serious judgment. Everything was just nice things. That's all they want to talk about is nice things. Like you're going to some motivation conference. That's what them wacky tacky churches be like. And even these damn Israelite camps out here. These false prophets. Even they be telling their smooth lies. and not warning Jake about what it really is, and what's coming very soon. No, they rather talk about this wicked kingdom and how and you go get married and build a community, go help clean your community and build shelters or whatever fucking nonsense they be talking about. In Babylon the Great, to make it even worse, a place that's gonna get, like I said, wiped off the map. But they don't want to talk about that stuff, and these are the things that people like to hear. They don't like to hear about the doom and gloom. They don't like to hear about the coming destruction. One, because they're scared. That could be one. They don't want to hear it. Or they don't want to change. They don't want to correct their lives. They just want to continue in the old-fashioned way of going about things. Verse 11, forget all this gloom and get off your narrow path. Stop telling us about your Holy One of Israel. They don't want to hear about Yahushua. They don't want to hear his name. They don't want to hear his name. This is the reply of the Holy One of Israel, because you despise what I tell you and trust instead in oppression and lies. Calamity will come upon you suddenly, like a bulging wall that bursts and falls in an instant, and it will collapse and come crashing down. You will be smashed like a piece of pottery, shattered so completely that there won't be a piece big enough to carry coals from a fireplace or a little water from the well. So this is that warning. The warning is going out to Jakes, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Natives, to get right. Seek Yahweh Shem Yahushai. And if you don't, if you're stubborn, or those who are preaching and talking about other types of doctrines, not coming in his name, the Lord is going to judge you. The Lord is going to judge you for messing around. But like I said, it is written. The Lord warned us of all this. He warned us that these people would be stubborn and not want to listen. Not want to listen to what we have to say. A lot, because we don't look the part. We got beards. We ain't clean shave. We're not all in sequence in the way we look. We don't all speak well. We're not wearing a suit and some dress shoes. That's why people are stubborn. They don't want to hear it, but they're going to find out. So when we jump back to John 12 and 38, this is exactly what Isaiah the prophet had predicted. Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, who has believed our message, to whom has the Lord revealed his powerful arm. But the people couldn't believe, for as Isaiah also said, the Lord has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, so that their eyes cannot see and their hearts cannot understand, and they cannot turn to me and have me heal them. And that's scary, That's a scary group to be in. To where the Lord is just straight blinding you. The Lord is just as blinding a lot of Jakes out here to not understand this word, just so he could judge them. Like, the Most High, he doesn't play. He's not. It's not a joke. He controls everything, and that's what a lot of our people's lot is. It's for them just to not understand, to just be blinded. The Lord don't want to heal them on this side. On this side, they gotta catch that judgment. They have to fulfill prophecy, you know? There's got to be a 2/3. Verse 42, many people did believe him, did believe in him, however, including some of the Jewish leaders, but they wouldn't admit it for fear that the Pharisees would expel them from the synagogue. For they loved human praise more than the praise of Yahweh. And that's sad, man. That's why when you come into this thing, when you're a servant of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, you can't get caught up in pleasing men. You know, mere man. You can't get caught up in that. You know, or pleasing anyone of that sort. You know, we want to do things that are pleasing unto Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Because doing things that are pleasing unto him is going to grant you that mercy. You know, that the Lord may have mercy upon you. You know, that's why we do these videos. That's why we do the work. That's why we go to camp, because we're seeking the mercy from Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, especially in the times to come, Jacob's trouble. You know, that's when, you know, that's when you're gonna see the mercies on a more, you know, physical level, because all the things that the Lord is gonna get us out of. You know, all the tight jams and close calls, and the Lord is gonna get us through that thing. He's gonna get his elect through those things. Why? Because they trusted in him. You know, we've trusted in him, we've believed in him, no matter what, and we didn't care what other people thought. We don't care how crazy we don't care if people look at us, if they side eye us when we're on the highways and hedges. You know, we don't care if people make fun of us because we don't eat pork, or we don't celebrate our birthdays, or because, you know, we don't want to do the things of this world. You know, that we're not wrapped up in it. Verse 44, Yahushua shouted to the crowds, if you trust me, you are trusting not only me, but also Yahweh who has sent me. For when you see me, you are seeing the one who sent me. I have come as a light to shine in this darkness. He is the light. Yahushua is the light. You know, and he's a light that you know, he's a light that lights the way. You know, in this world this world is full of darkness. This world is polluted, you know, but we have Yahushua, and he's a guide through all this darkness. I have come as a light to shine in this dark world, so that all who put their trust in me will no longer remain in the dark. I will not judge those who hear me, but obey me. I will not judge those who hear me, but don't obey me, for I have come to save the world and not to judge it. But all who reject me and my message will be judged on the day of judgment by the truth I have spoken. I don't speak on my own authority. You know, we're not doing that now. You know, when we're prophesying, you know, when we're bringing out the word, this is not of our own interpretation. This is not because this is how we feel. No, this is the word. This is the word of the Lord. You know, and people get butthurt when they hear about that the Lord is gonna judge, that he kills, you know, and that he's not coming for everybody. He's coming for his elect. I don't speak on my own authority. The Father who sent me has commanded me what to say and how to say it. And I know his commands lead to eternal life. So I say whatever the Father tells me to say. That's because Yahushua is was sent to do the will of his Father. You know, and we into this. And today, we are here doing the will of Yahweh Shai. We're doing the will of Yahweh Shai in hopes, that we'll be saved, and that we'll be forgiven for all the wickedness that we've done, in this life and our past lives. This is Acts 7:51. You stubborn people. This is in the NLT. You stubborn people. You are heathen at heart and deaf to the truth. Lord, he's calling his people heathen because they're stubborn. They're moving a lot of Jakes out here are moving like heathens. Following after the way of the heathen and being more wicked at it.